Okay, there we go.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. I am Terry Lamantia, and Stephanie Cowie and I are the Greenwich High School PTA co-presidents this year. Our meeting today will be recorded and posted on the GHS PTA website. After a full year of coronavirus, we all remain grateful to our district, school administrators, and faculty for keeping our children in school. Before we turn the meeting over to Dr. Catherine Noble and our other panelists to discuss the future of our schools after COVID, I would like to provide you with a few updates. After our program this evening, we will present 4 important motions to help with our school, faculty, and student needs. As a PTA, we remain forever grateful to all of you for your significant support of the PTA this year. As a result of your support, we have been able to accomplish many wonderful things for our school. So far this year, we created safe outdoor spaces with many beautiful picnic tables and Adirondack chairs. In addition, we have funded distance learning technology grants for our music, science, and math departments, as well as a Ventures in Education grant to purchase cameras, tripods, cases, and lenses for our video production department. Thanks to the great collaboration year after year between the PTA and Gary Charles of Greenwich High School, our students once again enjoyed a fabulous diversity week with a variety of speakers and performers. Our treasurer will provide you with an update about our bank accounts and other spending for Greenwich High School this year. Your PTA has been working closely with Greenwich High School and our district to plan for graduation, prom, and other celebrations to honor our seniors in accordance with the state and local health guidelines. Earlier today, I am so happy to announce that Karen Foster sent the senior parents dates and plans for senior celebrations, prom, and graduation. We are beyond thrilled that we can and will honor the class of 2021. At this time, I'd like to ask Ann Gustafson, our treasurer, to give us the treasurer's report. Ann?
Thank you, Terry. So I'm going to start out. We currently have $255,000 between our checking and savings accounts, $132,000 in checking and $122,000 in our savings. Our year-to-date net revenue is $132,000, which is about $21,000 under budget. The revenue includes membership, donations, and matching gifts. And the difference between our net revenue from our January meeting and this current March meeting is the refund of our summer fair payments to vendors since we did not hold the event this year due to COVID. Our year-to-date spending is $93,500. Curriculum enrichment activities have been significantly impacted by COVID, and this is our largest line item expense. We budgeted $40,000 and we have only spent $2,000 of that. So as Terry mentioned, there's several line item increases up for vote at the end of the evening to support our teachers and students so that we can spend the money that we brought in. And we continue, we have increased our distance learning and school improvement line items this year in the fall to support our students and staff in other ways in the classroom. And we continue to support them through the distance learning, student outreach, diversity, and scholarships. I'd like to turn it over to Stephanie Cowie, our co-president at this time.
Thanks, Ann, I appreciate it. Before I introduce our panel this evening, we do want to encourage everyone to remain on after the panel is completed, as the motion portion of the meeting will take place after. And it's very important that we have your votes this evening before we finalize anything. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Catherine Noble, Greenwich Public School Medical Advisor, Stephanie Dunn Ashley, the CEO of the Red Cross Metro North New York, Mary Keller, our head nurse of Greenwich Public Schools, and a state Connecticut task force member, and Dr. Pial Alam of Greenwich Hospital. Our panelists this evening will provide us with their insights about the future of our schools after COVID and the vaccine. Following the panel discussion, like I said, there will be a Q&A. Actually, following the panel discussion this evening, there'll be a Q&A for all to participate, moderated by Layla Horn, our VP of Parent Education. You can utilize the chat function with any questions you would like addressed. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Noble. You and your panelists have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Layla Horn and all of you for inviting me to be a part of this evening. I really hope it is provides a lot of insight and information for all of you who are joining us tonight. To introduce myself very briefly, everybody knows me as Dr. Katie, not Dr. Noble or really anything else. I am a Harvard-trained pediatrician and a Cal Berkeley grad and a native Californian. I'm the founder and managing partner of Sound Beach Pediatrics. And I took on the advisory role for the Greenwich Public School System in February 2020, just before the pandemic struck. And certainly it has been a wonderful opportunity, a much deeper and broader experience than I ever imagined, but nonetheless, extremely enriching experience for me, and I'm grateful for it. I also have 3 children of my own, 2 of which are in the high school right now. Mari is a senior and Charlie is a sophomore. My talk tonight is the latest on COVID-19 and the promise of the COVID-19 vaccine. I'll be covering where we were in March, very briefly, of last year, where we are now, and where we are heading, with the vaccine providing our best chance at getting our lives, and especially our kids' lives, back to normal. And I will say, as I try to switch over now to getting my slides up, that normally I like to prepare my talks at least a couple of weeks in advance. And while I knew what I wanted to talk about tonight, I couldn't actually prepare my slides until really the last 48 hours. And that's because, as you all know, the information is changing so rapidly. And even then I had to change some of my slides within the last few hours. So, so here we go, the latest on COVID-19 with an emphasis on the vaccine. I've shared with you my outline, and hopefully you'll find my slides to be visually very interesting. I put a lot of graphics in for you. Here is where I felt that we were last year on March 13th, 2020, which happened to be my birthday. I felt that we were on the precipice of something horrible and daunting. And I think many of us felt that way. And I'm sharing actually a few of my slides that I presented several months ago, really in the fall, trying to get kids back to school. I felt at that time that we were gathering evidence now to make decisions now, and we're still in that place. I was trying to think in my mind, what should our goals and objectives be? And I wanted to get kids back to school in person, allow teachers and students who were at risk to remain home if needed. And I wanted distance learning to be provided, through a live platform. And look at what's been accomplished, honestly. I'm so amazed and impressed at what our schools have done. And I felt that we needed to approach the fall with thought, creativity, be prepared to be nimble and to be decisive at the same time. And our schools have done exactly that through wonderful leadership. And I'm so grateful for this.
Dr. Noble, sorry to interrupt you really quick. For some reason, the slides are not coming up. I think you have to click share screen. They're not seeing this, because we hear your beautiful description, so we can't see the slides.
Oh my goodness, okay.
I think you just need to click on share screen at the bottom of the screen. Do you see it?
Forgive me. Here we go.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, of course. Okay, let me try this again.
There.
There we go.
Okay, I'm going to have to just hang on 1 second as I switch to this mode, and I have to stop my subtitles. Okay, so this is where I thought we were. Oops. So you can see that on the precipice. And again, these are just a couple of slides that I shared in the fall of 2020. And here is where we are now. And you guys can see my slides now, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So the COVID pandemic continues to be a really, really serious problem. It's wreaked havoc across the globe. These are some statistics that I obtained from Johns Hopkins University and Medicine, their resource center. Look at the number of global cases and global deaths, and this is data as of March 17th. In the United States, huge number of new deaths are being reported, a huge number of total deaths surpassing over 500,000. And it just continues to be an enormous health burden for this country. I thought it would be helpful to look at some data from the Connecticut Department of Public Health. And so, again, these are just some pictures and graphics to help to sort of share where we're at right now. A tremendous number of cases in Connecticut. And, you know, in Lower Fairfield County, we are New York City's backyard. And so all of the difficulty they've experienced there in New York City has really spilled over into Lower Field County and beyond. So, and as I mentioned, you know, Greenwich and Stamford still remain a very serious sort of hub of COVID infection, although it's being managed, I think, extremely well. So the question is, are we moving in the right direction? And I would say yes. And I can show you some graphics that show not only the state of Connecticut, but in the United States, things are moving in the right direction. This is the Connecticut case curve, and you can see the tremendous decline since winter, and December and January were very difficult. You can also see that our hospitalization curve looks much better. Look at where we were before and look at where we are now. And the number of COVID-associated deaths has declined as well. And this is something to feel very positive about. But of course, we don't want to have any more loss of life. And that's also part of the reason I'll be focusing a lot on the vaccine tonight. The daily trends in US cases as reported to the CDC in the United States is also on the decline, which is encouraging news. And associated deaths are also on the decline. I'm going to switch gears now to a little bit more of my own area of expertise, which is taking care of children as a pediatrician. And so I shared this slide months ago. I thought children truly are, as wonderful and cute as they are, when it comes to COVID infection, they are like little wolves in sheep's clothing. It's almost impossible to tell who has it. And that's because COVID infection in children is generally extremely mild. We all know the symptoms of COVID in children. It's been gone over many times before, but it's just basically like the common cold. And this is what gave me, quite honestly, such incredible anxiety at the beginning of the pandemic. I thought, how am I going to know the difference? And that's why we had to wear PPE right off the bat. I think it's extremely important for parents in this community and really around the globe to know that the mortality rate for children is extremely rare. And you can see here the number of cases in Connecticut, the number of deaths in Connecticut is extremely low. And that should give parents hopefully some, peace that if their children are unlucky enough to become infected, that true harm is not likely to come their way. However, we know that children are at risk of some complications. So on the one hand, the CDC reports that an estimated 16% of children who have COVID infection are completely asymptomatic, meaning there's just nothing, not even a sniffle. But there's further evidence to suggest that as many as half of pediatric infections are asymptomatic. So while it's very well established that children are less likely to have severe disease, it is important to note that 1 in 3 children hospitalized with COVID in the United States have been admitted to the ICU. And this is actually in line with what happens in the adult population. It's also important to note that because of this rare but life-threatening risk of complications from COVID, which includes myocarditis, which is a very serious heart inflammation and infection, and MISC, this inflammatory syndrome in children. Because of this, we have to remain vigilant as pediatric healthcare providers and parents as well to watch out for potential signs and symptoms that our kids may be getting a little sicker than we realize. The CDC also reports that similar to adults, children who have certain health conditions may also be at risk for severe illness. And these conditions include diabetes, asthma, obesity, sickle cell disease, immunosuppression, and the like. And we also have discovered that hospitalization rates and more severe disease is higher among minority populations, and also in communities that are underserved. And studies, of course, have shown time and time again that obesity is a critical risk factor in developing severe disease. So shifting gears again, now I want to focus on the vaccine, the COVID vaccine. And I have to say, although I hear grumblings about it's not going fast enough, but look at this data. I think this is amazing that 95.7 million vaccine doses have been administered in this country. And this is data that's accurate as of March 10th. 62.5 million people have received at least one dose of the vaccine, and 32.9 million people have been fully vaccinated. And I'm one of them, and I'm so grateful. And I think we all should be. We've all heard a little bit about different vaccine types, and I thought we would just do like a crash course in just like 1 or 2 slides on this. We have the Pfizer vaccine, which has provided the bulk of our vaccines administered in this country thus far, followed very closely by Moderna, and then very recently we had the Johnson & Johnson's vaccine approved. So I thought, let's do a head-to-head on this. So here we are. We've got the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccines. Both of these are sort of a new technology. They're mRNA vaccines. Both are 2-dose series, and Pfizer and Moderna are very similar in efficacy, pretty impressively so. And yet the Moderna vaccine has been shown to be slightly less effective in patients who are older. Pfizer's approved in children 16 and up, with testing being performed right now in children 12 and up. And Moderna is approved in 18 and up, and they are now testing in younger children too. And the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a more standard vaccine utilizing technology that leverages adenovirus. It's a one and done approach. It's a little bit less efficacious, but it still holds great promise. And it is also approved in children 18 and up. So you may be wondering, why should we vaccinate children against COVID-19? Some of you may be wondering. Some of you may be fully in favor of it. I recognize we probably have both groups and people in between. I feel very strongly that we should be vaccinating children against COVID. And so I'm going to share with you my reasoning. So I really believe strongly that a robust vaccination program for people of all ages provides our very best chance at a return to a more normal life, which includes regular in-person schooling, not just here locally, which we've been very successful, but in other communities and across the globe. And although, as I mentioned, children are generally not at risk of severe disease, they can still contract the infection and spread it to higher risk populations, including some of their relatives and their own teachers. Severe disease in children, although rare, can be life-threatening, as I mentioned, and children are experiencing widespread dramatic negative effects from the disruption in their day-to-day life due to COVID. And I thought I would share a couple slides now with the news. Check this out. This is from March 8th. Thousands of students have dropped out of school during COVID. These are the educators trying to track them down, and this is in New York City. Here we go. Good morning, Catherine Noble, Friday, March 12th. COVID-19 pandemic and mitigation measures have disrupted efforts to protect children from lead poisoning. And we know that lead poisoning affects mostly children in underserved communities. Here we go again, where I believe this is Monday, March 15th. I can't read that part on my slide. Pediatric healthcare providers say that the COVID pandemic has impacted children's mental health. And it mentions here very specifically that pediatric psychiatrists are seeing children with phobias, tics, eating disorders, OCD, scrubbing their hands raw, covering their bodies with disinfectant gel, and terrified of basically getting sick from everything. And by the way, this is no different from what I'm seeing in my own office. I've seen a big toll on my patients in terms of their mental health. In the UK, I thought this quote was unbelievable. Closing schools closes lives. This is a professor and president of the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health. And in this BBC News article, they cited the following implications: mental health problems on the rise, babies falling behind in development, children with disabilities effectively incarcerated in their own home. The pandemic has made abusive situations invisible, and children have essentially been abandoned. And this is from January. And then one last slide, I'm going to blow this out. Let's see what UNICEF has to say about this. And this I thought was just heart-wrenching for me to read, that the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in the largest disruption of learning in history, and schools for more than 168 million children have been closed for almost a full year. With every day that goes by, these children will fall further behind, and the most vulnerable will pay the price, the heaviest. And so I just think it's worthy of mention. And so for me, from my perspective, and I think my view is shared by many others in healthcare, I believe that the vaccine provides hope. So when will children be vaccinated? Well, I'm very excited about this. And I'm just going to come clean. I'm not Dr. Fauci, but I'm going to tell you what Dr. Fauci said. So Dr. Fauci said that he thought that it was quite possible that elementary school children will be vaccinated by early fall. And I hope he's right. And by the way, this just came out within the last 3 days that Governor Lamont is going to roll out the vaccine program for children 16 and up starting in early April. And I think that is thrilling. How can we be confident, though, that the vaccine will be safe for our children? This is a big concern, not just with the COVID vaccine, but with vaccines in general. But specifically, I think for the COVID vaccine, because it was approved in a very rapid fashion. And I think parents should be critical consumers always of what goes into their children's bodies. But I will tell you this, you've got to figure out who you trust. So I trust the CDC, I trust the AAP, and I trust the FDA. And these are just a few of the organizations involved to make sure that clinical trials are done very properly, that post-licensure safety studies are performed, and that there's ongoing monitoring to make sure that everybody is safe, including our kids. So will children that are very, very tiny be vaccinated against COVID? Well, I wasn't sure about this and I looked into it. I had an answer and then boom, it changed again. This is just from March 16th. So this is 2 days ago. Moderna has just started studying COVID vaccine in children ages 6 months to 11 years. So we are in a very, very exciting place with lots of changes on the horizon. So I'm summing up now. This is a slide again that I showed a few months ago, again in the fall. I thought this is such a powerful quote, that the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. And bravo to our school system and to the leadership in place. And this has been going on across the globe, that all of the efforts made to tackle the problems that we have and to make decisions and to basically modify what we do nearly on a daily basis. Wouldn't we all love to see this again? All of this, the sports, the music, the being together, children being able to hug, students being able to hug a teacher. I mean, this is what we all want back. And I think it's doable, but we need to focus on what we have in hand, and that is the vaccine. And I feel the real key to our future. And I hope that 2021 truly proves to be an amazing year of change with all of the vaccinations happening in this country. So thank you very much. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now because I would like to introduce, if I can pull over here. Am I still sharing my screen? Hang on.
No.
Okay, good. So I had trouble having my slides show, but not trouble turning them off. So now I would actually like to introduce our the first of our other participants in our panel. So it's a privilege to introduce to you Dr. Payal Alam. He is a board certified physician in family medicine, currently serving in several roles through the Yale New Haven Health Northeast Medical Group system. His primary practice site is Northeast Medical Group in the Rybrook Walk-In Center. He also serves as a clinician for the Yale COVID Call Center. Dr. Alam has been taking care of community members with COVID-19 since the beginning of the pandemic last March. He was one of the first recipients of the COVID-19 vaccine at Greenwich Hospital. In Dr. Alam's words, he said this: "I chose to be one of the first people to get the vaccine so as to inspire others to consider getting the vaccine by showing our community that the vaccine is safe and that the scientific data and now real world results show that it is effective. Hopefully, this can be the beginning of the end of the pandemic for us all. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Dr. Lum, and look forward to what you have to share with us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Katie. That was wonderful and a wonderful presentation. And thank you so much to the entire PTA and everyone here attending tonight as well. It's an honor. So for my presentation, I won't be sharing my screen, but I'll be speaking a little bit, and I'll be speaking in 3 parts. One, I'll give you my own personal perspective on my story on the vaccination and whatnot. And then number 2, I was actually part of the Yale COVID weekly briefings that we get from the system. That actually happened yesterday, so I'll give you a little update from that. And then finally, I'll share a few useful resources and tools that we could use to, try to mitigate or limit COVID in our community. So without much further ado, like Dr. Katie actually said, I was one of the first people at Greenwich Hospital to get the vaccine. It was just echoing her theme of optimism. That's really what I felt. When I heard that the vaccine was being available to our community, like any scientist, my first thought was, all right, let me look at the research, let me look at the data, and then talk to other doctors that are a lot more smarter than me. And they all gave me that reassurance. And I was able to get the Pfizer vaccine. The way I would describe it is, after I got the vaccine, it felt like the flu vaccine after the first shot. And then after my second vaccination, it was more like the tetanus vaccine. I had a little bit of soreness, a little bit of fatigue. However, that lasted only about 24 hours for myself. And then after that, I was back to good old regular me. But for most patients, this is what we've been finding. About 90% of our patients get a little soreness at the injection site, a little bit of fatigue. However, for the most part, it is very safe. Again, very effective, saving numerous lives, and just a ray of sunshine and hope for us. So again, Dr. Katie actually alluded to it, very promising news from our governor earlier this week. Actually, starting from this Friday, from the age criteria has been lowered to age 45 and up now. And then from starting April 5th, it'll be from ages 16 and above. So, hope is near. And at this time, but for us still currently, we're still in phase 1B, so ages 55 and above, healthcare workers, of course, pre-K to ages grade 12 teachers, staff are eligible. So definitely talk to your doctors, your clinicians, and see if this is appropriate for your health condition. Okay. And now for the update from our health system. Again, very promising news from our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Thomas Balsek. Very, very promising. Actually, at Greenwich Hospital, our number of cases is actually around 10 patients with COVID only. And just for comparison purposes, when we were in our peak, we were approaching almost greater than 100 plus patients with COVID. So again, you could see greater than 10-fold decrease. A lot of this, our community, we could be very thankful and appreciative of ourselves because of the measures that we've been taking with wearing masks. People that are eligible to get vaccinated are getting vaccinated. I was actually looking at the latest data. Connecticut is actually one of the leaders in the country in terms of getting vaccination percentages. Greater than 15% of our greater population has gotten vaccinated. So I commend our community for that. We could be leaders for the rest of the nation to see. And just for, in terms of some hope and optimism as well, over 8,100 patients have been discharged home back to their lives from Greenwich Hospital since the start of the pandemic. So, I'm very thankful for everyone that's doing their part to help save lives. And then I think there was one more point that Dr. Katie did such a great job. You hit all the major points that I wanted to hit. So thank you so much. Yeah, so I'll just move on to the useful tools that we could use. A lot of them you may already know, but I'll elaborate a little bit with a medical touch so that we know what to do. First step, I'm sure a lot of you know in terms of washing your hands. You could use soap and water. Of course, counting to happy birthday at least 20 seconds, 20 20 to 30 seconds if you can. The other appropriate alternative are little handy dandy hand sanitizers. Just the very important medical fact I want to point out is making sure that whichever hand sanitizer you use is greater than 70% alcohol based. Below that, I mean, CDC says 60% is okay as well, but ideally greater than 70% will kill the majority of the bacteria or any viruses or anything like that. So definitely keep that in mind. The next tool I want to talk about is thermometers, digital thermometers, oral thermometers, or infrared thermometers. This is an error I used to make myself initially, so I wanted to share with you. So when taking your temperature, try not to go too close or too far, then you'll get inappropriate readings sometimes. So 6 inches is the ideal distance. A great tool to have, that way it could be used multiple times. So very, very useful tool. And another tool that's very useful to save lives, actually. A lot of my patients, since the start of the pandemic, I've been recommending this to is, it's called a pulse oximetry machine. A lot of you may have heard about this. When you go to the doctor's office, they'll usually put this on your fingertip. And what they're looking for, sorry, my fingers are a little cold. If it pulled up, I would show you. Just 1 second, please. I got cold fingers. Oh, perfect. You could see my heart rate and oxygen level. So the most important thing is the oxygen level in terms of COVID-related symptoms or even any type of upper respiratory symptoms. Most people's oxygen is anywhere between 100% to 92%. So anywhere between that range is relatively normal. You breathe adequately well, oxygenate relatively well. However, once it starts dropping below that point, it's when it starts getting a little dangerous. I would recommend letting your healthcare doctor, clinician know immediately so that they could help guide you. Anything below 89% is starting to approach a medical emergency. This is actually, believe it or not, saved numerous lives. Actually, just 3 weeks ago, I had a patient had a pulse oximetry at home. His oxygen was like 84%. We sent them to New Haven Hospital, and it was we were, knock on wood, able to save his life. So a very useful tool to consider having at home. And you could get it off of online in the pharmacy, readily available now. And then the final tool, we've all been using it since last year, the masks. So there's a latest CDC study that was done, actually February 19th. Some of you may have heard of single masking versus double masking. So now the latest recommendation is, if you can, double masking. And the reason for that is because of the new variants that we have of COVID-19, which are a little more contagious. Some of them aren't necessarily virulent, meaning more dangerous in terms of symptoms, however, much more contagious. So you don't want to spread it to others. So what this study showed is that if you wear just a single mask and someone else has COVID and coughs towards you, it only stops at about 56%, just due to the holes that you may have or anything like that. But if you wear a double mask and the other person is either single mask or not really wearing a mask, it goes up to 85%. So that's a significant jump, almost 30% protection. And then finally, if both participants, say yourself and the person that may have COVID, are both double masked, the prevention is around 95%. So nearly 95 to 96% effective in preventing it. So until we reach that herd immunity state where greater than 80% of our population has the vaccine, it's highly, highly recommended to consider, double masking. And again, before you do anything, I always recommend talking to your healthcare provider, being comfortable with it, reviewing your medical history, but just to show you, I know it might be a little silly, but I'll show you how it looks to wear. So you wear it, always making sure, trying to cover the nasal bridge with your mask. And then after that, always wearing a surgical mask first. And then after that, you can wear a cloth mask or anything else. I'm a native New Yorker, so I'm a New York Giants fan. You could represent your favorite sports team or anything. And then that's pretty much it. Okay, always making sure that the top is covered. That's by far the most important thing. Okay, So those were the main facts I wanted to review. I don't want to take too much more of your time. So with that, Dr. Katie, I think I'll be handing it back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alam. And let me just, it's wonderful to hear your perspective. And what I love about this panel that the PTA has brought together is that we can all share different angles and perspectives in the spirit of trying to get rid of this pandemic. I would love to mention that Dr. Alam has a new baby at home, and special thanks to his wife for sharing Dr. Alam with us tonight. I imagine things are quite busy at home right now, and so we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So I'm now going to introduce to you Stephanie Dunn Ashley. She is the CEO of Metro New York North Chapter of the Red Cross. She was formerly the Director of Special Events for Greenwich Hospital for 13 years. She's a graduate of Fordham University, and she is the proud mother of 2 Greenwich High School seniors, Annalise and Charlotte. So this is what Stephanie will be talking about tonight. She says the following: the American Red Cross Metro New York North Chapter is proud to have continued to deliver its life-saving mission throughout the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, whether responding to disasters down the street or across the country, teaching life-saving skills like swim, safety, CPR, and first aid, collecting life-saving blood, or supporting military families and veterans. The Red Cross remains at the ready to support the Greenwich community. And on that note, Stephanie, please take the floor.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Katie. And thanks to the PTA for inviting me here this evening. I am the proud mom of Annalise and Charlotte, seniors who are downstairs. Hopefully not going to come up and bother me. But we're looking forward. We're very excited to hear all the great things that are coming down the pipeline as well. We got that great email for the senior parents today. That was a lot of rah-ha-ha in our house. So thank you so much for all you're doing to keep all of us safe, both the teachers, the students, the staff, and everyone. So I'm going to do a little bit different. I'm going to share my screen with you now. Bear with me. Yes, I think I got it. Can you see that? Do you see that? Yeah, good. Okay, great. It's odd when you present because you don't get to see everything else going on. So the American Red Cross, what we're doing and what you can do. Some of the things that we like to, in this past year that we've liked to, that we have shared with others is the fact that we're still doing what we're doing. And that involves trying to engage youth groups, trying to engage all of the people that respond for us in many ways, and obviously trying to keep everyone who's doing that safe and secure. So clearly we want to make sure that we're doing that for everyone. So what we'd like to do is just tell you a little bit about our mission. We prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors. I'm thrilled to say one of our Metro New York North board members is Steph Cowie, your own PTA co-president, sorry. She's an amazing force to be reckoned with for anyone who knows her. I was very happy to sit on the PTA with her when my kids were in middle school. But she is one of the one of the volunteers, and 90% of our workforce base is made of volunteers. And a lot of those are youth, and we're very pleased for that group. And what we want to tell you a little bit about that in just a bit. But what we do, we impact lives every day. There are 24,000 people assisted by the Red Cross daily. Home fires is our #1 response. Blood and the collection of blood is overly important. We had the very beginning of COVID, there was a mission critical need for blood where everything was being shut down, people weren't going out, so people weren't donating blood, but yet the need for blood was still there. Accidents were still happening, so there was trauma, there was cancer patients, there are new moms, every type of patient that would need blood was getting it, but we were having a very critical load getting it. Giving blood is very safe. We do it all things, just like all things, we do it in a very safe manner. We have testing, our cleaning protocols, all CDC guidelines are being followed. One great little side to note is the building that was on the front of my slides. That's our chapter building right off exit 4 on the 95. And we are currently renovating that. And in that building, one of the floors of that building will be a blood services donation floor. Really a great thing for this area, and really great to involve the youth groups and the children moving forward. So right now, where are we? We're responding to hurricanes in the south. We're responding to missions that the government requires of us. We're responding to the home fire that was down the street or around the corner, and we're doing that, as we said, daily. We also provide service to military families and veterans. A lot of them are here in our community. We have, as it says, 1,400 times a day we provide these services. It's an average of 7 to 8 times a day from just our community do we provide services to the military, which is great to hear. And then obviously vaccinations we provide across, around the world. We're providing measles and rubella vaccinations. We are not providing COVID-19 vaccinations. However, we are providing assistance at sites that are. So we are being the check-in people. We have nurses and EMTs who have taken the course to administer those vaccines that are helping out and volunteering their time across our greater New York region, which is Long Island, New York City, Westchester, Greenwich, Connecticut. We're working and we have also inroads with the town of Greenwich to make sure that if they need us, we're at the ready for them as well. And then finally, training, life-saving training. I get calls about this almost every day. How's the babysitting class coming along? Are we doing lifeguarding training? And are we doing Safety Town, one of the major rites of passages for kids entering kindergarten and first grade? Yes, yes, and yes, we're doing all of that. We're doing it in a little bit different way, but we're doing it in a very safe manner. So if your child needs babysitting courses, or your child needs lifeguarding training, or your child needs Safety Town, we've got that coming your way. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about our mission and COVID-19 and what we're doing. As we said, all of the things that we're continuing to do, disasters and blood services, and international services training, armed forces, all being done through following strict CDC guidelines. So don't worry if you want to come in and donate blood. I give blood every 56 days, whole blood, which you can do. I love tracing it on our app because you can find out when you've given it, how they're testing it. And then the great thing is you can find out where it goes. And coming from Greenwich Hospital after 13 years, my last donation went to Greenwich Hospital, and it was like a little like, oh, that's awesome. It's also gone up to Yale Children's Hospital. It's gone to New Jersey. So I get to follow it around, which is kind of an interesting and fun thing. But every 56 days, every time you donate blood, you can save the lives potentially for 3 people. So that's really an incredible thing, an incredible generous thing for you to do. And it doesn't cost you anything except for a little bit of time. So don't be afraid, please come out and do that. And when our new building opens in September, I hope you all will come and see that too. So I want to talk a little bit now about the Red Cross Club and Greenwich High School. So as we know, clubs are not happening the way they were before. We're just not allowed to do what we were, but we're still doing some virtual things, and we have really re-engaged, I think it's up to now 14 or 15 students that have shown interest and involvement, again, from another board member's connection. Her daughter is a junior in the high school, and she really wanted to start the club up again. So we are doing it, but we've also been utilizing youth services and the kids at Greenwich High School since, I'm going to throw it a little bit out there, since I started last year. This is actually, I'm just completing my first year with the Red Cross. So I literally left and was a completely virtual employee from day one. My 52 weeks is tomorrow. So, so there you go. But very excited to have the students helping with local preparedness programs. I've had them helping with our Safety Town program, again, in a virtual standpoint. They've assisted at blood drives. They've assisted with fundraising opportunities, and they're really getting involved. And it's really something that they look forward to, because students want to get out. Everybody wants to get out and do something, but to get out and do something that's giving a service-oriented thing is really a wonderful community community rally, and we're really thrilled to have everyone participate with us. So we will be going again into in-person things once we're allowed to, but for now, what we can do virtually and what the kids can do on their own in the safety of their homes, or my two kids do things together. If we utilize them any way we can. I hope to see you. I hope to see you out there soon, and I hope to be able to join you. But I really do, most importantly, hope to get the youths involved again, and to really get them back on the path of hands-on and being out there. All in due time. Especially great news with the vaccines going down to the 16 year and age up. So that's it for me. I'm going to stop my sharing. Yes, I did it. And I'm going to turn it back to you, Dr. Katie.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing this wonderful information. I have, all three of my children attended Safety Town, and, I've taken a CPR course at, the Red Cross. It's an incredible organization and wonderful to hear what's happening right now. And so thank you very, very much. I am now going to introduce Mary Keller. So Mary has worked for the town of Greenwich and Greenwich Public Schools for 20 years and was promoted to her current position of supervisor of all school health programs in 2015. She spent 18 years working at Columbia Presbyterian Children's Hospital and has a bachelor's and master's degree from Columbia University. Mary is going to speak tonight on the current status of programs and protocols at Greenwich High School, including sports, contact tracing, travel advisory, vaccination of teachers, and graduation, among other things. And as an important side note, I will tell you that it has been an absolute pleasure to work with Mary this past year since I took the medical advisory position. She is incredibly hardworking, dedicated to the core, and just a dynamo. I have such respect for her. She has had such a challenging job this past year. And I'm excited to hear what she has to say tonight. So Mary, take the floor.
Well, thank you, Katie. That was really quite the introduction. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for having me. I'm going to be very brief in my remarks because it's the end of the meeting and most everyone who's gone before me has covered an awful lot of topics. But I will leave time for questions at the end and try and cover some of the things that we've been doing at the school this year. So thank you. I want to start off by saying thank you back to the parents for your continued understanding, for your willingness, for your cooperation, for everything that you've done that has made our job, which was tough and frustrating this year, a little bit easier. Certainly, we couldn't have done it without you. And again, we should all feel very lucky that Greenwich Public School has the wonderful leadership of Dr. Jones and all of the teachers that have made it possible to keep our schools open and keep our transmission rate very low. We have done a little pat on my back, a very good job at keeping things on course. Many school districts across the state and even across the country have just started to open, and we have been open since September, the first week in September, so we can feel very good about that. We've had our mitigation strategies in place, and our students and faculty have been working very hard and staying in the zone and not becoming complacent. These children deserve a huge amount of credit for the part that they've played in keeping the schools open. It's not just the teachers, it has been the students as well, and I'm so proud of them. I continue to be cautiously optimistic, as others have said, that things are getting better, that we can see a return to the vibrant school environment that we had. I am so looking forward to sitting in the stadium and watching a football game, or to attending a concert, the wonderful band and orchestra, art shows, and the reopening of the Black Box Theater. I really think we could all use a good musical now, for sure. But we are still on the cusp. it's important that we stay the course and that we don't let our guard down. As we've learned way too often in this course of this pandemic, we cannot predict what this virus is going to do or where it will lead us. So we need to adhere to our precautions and not let the promise of sunny days and warm weather fool us into believing that we've seen the last of this. As regulations loosen, let's keep our eyes on the goal. Our goal, prom, graduation, end of the year celebrations, all of those are really within our reach. Plans for graduation and prom are gearing up, and certainly the governor speeding up the vaccine for 16 and 17-year-olds was a real shot in the arm, no pun intended. Close attention is being paid to the safety precautions for all of the graduation events. And I have to give a really big shout out and thank you to Karen Foster, who deserves all the recognition. She's been working tirelessly and for weeks on end trying to make this a reality for your children. Spring break is also around the corner, very exciting. I think we all deserve a vacation. We all can't wait for a vacation. But again, it's another potential hiccup in preventing the spread. So just a quick reminder, if you're going to travel, please travel smart. Wear your masks in public. And as Dr. Alam said, wear 2 masks in public. Remember to social distance and remind your juniors and seniors that the vaccine is coming. And if you're in quarantine, you can't get your vaccine and grandma wants to see you graduate. So another thing that we've been doing, which is a very positive step, is that we're very proud of our partnership with the Yale New Haven Health System and Greenwich Hospital and the Greenwich Department of Health. They've allowed us to vaccinate almost all of our teachers or have at least a shot in the arm by the end of March for all 1,572 teachers, bus drivers, custodians, substitute teachers, food service workers. We've included everyone. And in addition, we're exploring expanding our partnership with those entities to include testing of students and staff. We look forward to that and the plans we're going forward. Finally, the travel advisory recommends, and we are asking, that you test upon your return and submit a negative test to the nurse or principal before your child returns to class. This has worked very well in the past and has really prevented unnecessary disruptions to learning. Quarantine is very disruptive, but again, it's a necessary tool and something that we really have to adhere to in terms of keeping our schools safe. When we quarantine in elementary schools, we quarantine by class. We quarantine by class because they're little, they're active, they're loud, they're very vocal, and they're not very good at telling us who they had lunch with or contact tracing. On the other hand, we're able to be more strategic in the high school and middle school because the students are quieter, they're more well-behaved. I know as parents of teenagers, that comes as a surprise to many of you, but they are. I walk past the class and they're all sitting nicely. So we are able to look at our contact tracing and determine who sits in front or behind or in close proximity. And our contact tracing is certainly more surgical in those areas. So as I've said before, the students have been amazingly cooperative, even better than we ever could have imagined and thought. And I'd like to say again, thank you for all your patience and your students' patience, and have a good evening and open this up to any questions you might have. Thank you, everyone. Oh, they're clapping.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Layla Horn, VP of Permanent Education. I thought Stephanie had a few words to say, but I will take over. I don't have a lot of questions in the chat, but one of the first questions is, which is, I think, a very important question that I don't know if we have the answer, but will vaccines be mandatory, whether for school in the fall or for any special event? I guess maybe Mary Keller, do you have an answer to that? I mean, I know maybe we don't have an answer, I guess.
I don't think we have an answer yet. You know, we'll see what the governor has to say. We'll see what the State Department of Health has to say. As of yet, vaccines are not mandatory. No.
just like any other vaccine, right? So, yeah. I guess, let me see, just looking to do Mary Keller and Dr. Alam wear double masks? That's an interesting question, because you guys work with a lot of, well, obviously in the hospital, and then I'm sure in your situation, you work with a lot of people that are potentially infected.
Well, I guess I'll start answering that. So that's a
ahead.
great question to ask, and thank you for asking it. Yes, I do. I've been vaccinated. I got both vaccines. However, I still always wear the double mask for two reasons. One, it provides that added level of protection. You can never be too cautious. And number two, to really be a role model for our community. And if you got the vaccine, yes, you already have that added layer of protection. However, if you wear a double mask, you could be a role model to your community members and inspire them to consider wearing it as well and educate them as well. So I would highly recommend it and consider it as well.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I wear an N95 in most instances, and sometimes a face shield. Obviously, I wear glasses, which are another layer of protection. And I agree with Dr. Alam. I wear a mask when I walk out of my office in the schools across the courtyard as much as I can, because I wear a mask for protection, and I also wear a mask as a role model. It's very important.
Thank you for that. Question, I mean, I don't know if you guys know the answer to this, because again, this is all based on sort of, you know, this is when can students expected not have to wear masks. I guess that really depends, I suppose, on data, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming everything is data driven at this point, and like it's all about numbers. I don't really understand the numbers, but maybe one of you would like to tackle that a little bit, just sort of how numbers work in this case. I mean, I'm assuming this would be with any virus, with any illness. Sort of, you know, when you make a decision, and I guess who decides that? I guess maybe the question. That's a better question.
Well, I think it is a kind of a joint decision. There's a lot of players. It's the governor, it's the Department of Public Health, and it's the Connecticut State Department of Education. There are meetings that we've been having with those three players since last August, and we hear those questions, we think about them, we discuss them, the pros and the cons. We hear from superintendents of school, we hear from nursing supervisors, and everybody puts in their questions, they put in their observations, a lot of what we see sort of anecdotally in the schools, and we talk about it. And then, then the powers that be come out with guidance that we follow. So that's sort of how the process works. We gather the—
And I think,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, I think that answers a lot of the other questions in the chat, which are a lot of them are, when are we going back to 5 days a week? Is there any plan of going back 5 days a week? And I think that's sort of the answer for all of these questions is it's all based on all of these different departments and entities that come together. But ultimately, it'll be determined with sort of trickle down, I'm assuming, to the Board of Ed, which will then decide, right? Is that, or down to, I don't know exactly how that works.
Based on the guidance from those three entities and others, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, all of those groups sort of come into play and have a piece to add to the final decision. And then when the final decision comes out, we are given guidance by the state, and then we follow that. Yes.
Okay. There are some very specific questions about, well, people are in the chat talking about mandatory vaccine. Nobody mentioned mandatory vaccine. I don't think that was ever something that ever came up. I think everybody was just talking about their experience with the vaccine, and that the vaccine right now was something that seemed like it was helpful to getting everybody back in school. There's a couple of people who are saying, isn't it, it's not mandatory. No, of course it's not mandatory. I don't think anybody ever said that. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. I think there's just some recommendations that the doctors and then the nurse in the chat are saying that you personally think that it's a good idea, right? But other than that, of course, everybody can do whatever they want. Right. Okay. Just, I mean, I think we all agree on that. I mean, I'm just, getting some very long questions in the chat, so I'm just trying to go through them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
What you said is
yeah.
correct. There's been,
Okay.
vaccine is not mandatory.
Right, of course, yeah. And I don't think, and as far as I don't, this is not my area of expertise, I'm just, just a parent, but I don't, there's a whole question about vaccines in general. Some of them are required by school, but there's a lot of exemptions, right, from vaccines in general. I don't even know how that all works.
I'll speak to this.
Yeah.
Vaccines is a very sensitive subject. There are people, as I said during my talk, there are people that are very much in favor of it. There are people who are very much against it. And then there are people in between. And so I think all of us who've presented tonight are aware that people have different feelings, and it's a controversial subject. But I feel that the point that I think all of us were making as panelists is that we have a horrific situation on our hands with this global crisis. And the vaccine is, at least I believe, with the data that we have so far, our best chance at trying to get back to normal. So that's where we're coming from. We're not saying it's mandatory that you have to do it, that your kids have to do it, but we're providing our perspective and our medical opinions for those of us who are in healthcare.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, there's some very sort of strong feelings from some of the participants about mandatory vaccines, but again, nobody ever used that word. And obviously, regardless of whether somebody used that word, which you didn't, obviously that wouldn't be mandated by you, particularly you, you panelists. It would be something that goes way beyond, obviously, our little GHS panel.
It's way beyond. It's way beyond.
I mean, obviously, again, everybody's free to do whatever they want. I think everybody's just sharing their experience and their personal sort of advice and take on this. And I think we're all looking forward to just kids being back in school a little bit more actively. And I think that's really just, the goal. Are you able to report what percentage of teachers, staff opted to get vaccinated? I don't know that that's common information. I'm not sure. Probably not, right, Mary?
Yeah, I don't know that I have that information. I know that district-wide, Yale New Haven said they were able to vaccinate 91% of the teachers district-wide. So that's a fairly substantial number, but yeah, I don't have those numbers.
Right, and I think in the chat, I know somebody who's a teacher who answered the vaccine is not mandatory for teachers, which is obviously the case. So I think there's just a lot of confusion with the parents that's mandatory, which again it isn't. I'm not sure any other questions. There's a lot of questions going around the chat about mandatory vaccines and vaccines in general, but I don't think there's any other. Let me see. What conditions need to be met for GHS to resume 5-day in-person school? I mean, that's a good question. I don't know if we have the answer to that, but so in other words, what would the data have? Would it be that like at least a certain number maybe of kids would have to be vaccinated, or I'm not sure what the.
Yeah, that would. I'm not sure that I have an answer for that. I think that full in-person school will depend on what the Department of Health and, as I said, the Connecticut State Department of Education, they will have metrics that they will look at, and I think they will make that recommendation.
Right, exactly, and I think ultimately it depends on the amount of kids at the school, right? I think we have a very large high school, so I think that's part of the issue. I'm assuming, right? Right, compared to, because I know that people are saying there's other schools that are going to school full time, but I don't think that they can compare the size of the high school with other schools, right? Is that, and again, they're asking about social distancing required in school. And I think, again, this is all based again on the data that we've discussed already. That's trickling down from above. So obviously none of you have this answer in the palm of your hand. We wish we all had a
Layla,
crystal ball.
Crystal ball.
Layla, just to jump in here a little bit. So
Yeah.
Dr. Jones did state in the last meeting that we had that they are still obviously looking at it daily, making sure that they're following social distancing still. We do not look like many other of our cohorts within the state of Connecticut. So we look a lot different. We just have to be mindful of that. And I think everyone wants everyone back as soon as possible. But again, we're following what our district is telling us, what our Department of Health locally and the state of Connecticut, as well as following CDC. So I think we are all getting there, and we have these amazing people on this panel this evening to share their thoughts. And we really, truly cannot thank you enough for your time. It was quite great. So thank you very much. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. Anything else, Layla, do you think?
No, I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you guys so very much.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you very much
appreciate it.
for having us. Thank you.
Have a
Thanks for having
wonderful
us.
day, everyone.
Thank you for joining.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Now, before we begin the presentation of the motions at this time, we ask all PTA members to identify themselves by utilizing the chat function. Please place your full name and a confirmation that you are a PTA member in the chat now. This evening, we will vote on the approval of the following 4 items. Number 1, our January 28th, 21 general membership meeting minutes. Number 2, an increase up to $35,000 to the 2021 budget line for school improvements. 3, an increase up to $7,500 to the 2021 budget line for Teacher Appreciation Week. And number 4, an increase of $2,000 to the 2021 budget line for outreach. Please use the chat function if you would like to object to the approval of any motion. You should use the raise your hand feature if you would like to second a motion. We are voting without objection. So again, we're voting without objection today, which means you should object only if you have a question about the motion that has been presented. If there is no objection, the motion will pass as presented. If there is an objection, Terry will open the motion for discussion. Following the discussion, a roll call vote will be required. And Terry?
Thank
Take
you,
it away.
Stephanie.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with an approval of the minutes from our January 28th, 2021 meeting. I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 28th, 2021 general membership meeting. Second,
Second.
this motion is to approve the January 28th, 2021 minutes. If there is no objection, this motion will pass as presented. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the motion passes as presented. As the PTA has been working closely with our school administrators during COVID to identify needs to enhance the environment for our students and faculty, last Thursday, after a very thoughtful and considered discussion, the Greenwich High School PTA Board approved, subject to membership approval, up to a $35,000 increase to the 2020-2021 budget line for school improvements so we can help our school add Wi-Fi boosters to enhance the ability for our students and faculty to continue their studies outside, in addition to enhancing communication between parents and students in the school parking lot. In addition, we would like the opportunity to assist Greenwich High School in adding TV monitors in key locations such as the entrances to the 5 houses, the science, PAC, and gym wings to display important information about events and daily activities. I'd like to add that for the last 2 years as co-president, last year with Maureen Bonanno and this year with Stephanie Cowie, we met with student government several times to say, you know, what do you want? We're here. We want to help you. And I know Mark Chen and Meredith Blanchard are on the line tonight, and they came forward and they told us that this is what they wanted for their school. So as a result, I'd like to make a motion to approve up to a $35,000 increase to the 2020-2021 budget line for school improvements. As Ann discussed earlier this evening, we anticipate that our curriculum enrichment budget for field trips and other similar experiences will not be fully utilized, and therefore As a result of this expenditure, we do not expect an overall net increase to our budget. Do I have a second? Thank you, Stephanie.
Second.
This motion is to approve up to a $35,000 increase to the 2020-2021 budget line for school improvements. If there is no objection, this motion will pass as presented. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, this motion will pass as presented. Thank you. I'm so happy for our students. Also, at our last board meeting, we discussed that our faculty and administrators have been working tirelessly for our students over an extended period of time due to COVID. We want to provide them with a luncheon and a sweet treat or breakfast to demonstrate our appreciation for their hard work and dedication to our students.
Because I didn't want to like say that like
Excuse me?
Sorry, Terry, that was my fault. I was unmuting some.
No problem, Maureen.
Okay.
Thank you. To demonstrate our appreciation for their hard work over an extended period of time. After our discussion as a board, we approved, subject to membership approval, up to a $7,500 increase to the 2020-2021 Teacher Appreciation Week budget line. I'd like to make a motion to approve up to a $7,500 increase to the 2020-2021 Teacher Appreciation Week budget line. Do I have a second? Thank you,
Second.
Stephanie. The motion is to approve up to a $7,500 increase to the 2020-2021 Teacher Appreciation Week budget line. If there is no objection, this motion will pass as presented. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, this motion passes as presented. And now for our final item this evening. Also at our last board meeting, we discussed that many of our families are suffering from the economic impacts of COVID. We also know that our seniors have suffered from many, many things, losing the end of last year, as well as all of the senior celebrations thus far this year. And to support our senior families, we approved, subject to membership approval, a $2,000 increase to the 2020-21 outreach budget so that every senior who wants a yearbook and support with caps and gowns and prom tickets can have it if they need our help. With that said, I'd like to make a motion to approve a $2,000 increase to the 2020-2021 outreach budget line. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Layla. This motion is to approve a $2,000 increase to the 2020-2021 budget line for outreach. If there is no objection, this motion will pass as presented. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, this motion will pass as presented. I have to tell you, I feel quite emotional right now. I'm so proud of all of us here tonight. I'm proud of my board for finding their way to think through what our school needs, our students need, our faculty needs, and also our membership, who made all this possible by their generous support and donations, and for your ability to vote yes tonight. So thank you so, so much on behalf of Greenwich High School, our faculty, our students, and our administrators. And now to close, I'd like to thank Layla Horn, our VP of Parent Education, for organizing a fabulous, timely program tonight. I'd also like to thank all of our panelists for their insight on such a timely and important topic that is so important to many of us. And as we said earlier, our meeting tonight has been recorded and will be posted on the Greenwich High School PTA website. And with that said, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second?
Okay.
Stearns and Stephanie and I and the entire board and our panelists would like to thank you all for joining tonight. And I wish you a great evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Right. Good night.
Hello, great job.
Holy
Shit.
Oh, wait, hold on.